With that, I'm excited for this conversation from the field with the Vice President of Campaigns at Economic Security Project, Adam Ruben. Many of you know Adam as a tireless and dedicated organizer and advocate who led the charge to win the expanded child tax credit in 2021. He's partnered with many of you in the room to expand tax credits in 18, count them, 18 states across the country just last year. Just last year. And now he's ready to take on what many are calling the Super Bowl of tax reform. And to explain what that is, I'm going to invite him out. Give it up for Adam Ruben, everybody.
We can change the world.
All right. So Adam, help us talk about the Super Bowl of a federal tax fight. So next year, the 2017 Trump tax cuts expire, officially known as the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Boo. That cut taxes. This is what we know. It cut taxes chiefly for corporations and wealthy people. We know that. Set the stage for us, Adam. What's this fight going to be about, and why should people care?
Dorian, I think this is going to be the biggest economic policy fight of the next 4 years, regardless of who wins the White House. It's about what tax cuts expire, what tax cuts are extended, and what overall, how has the tax cut changed, the tax code changed. ESP is fighting for tax fairness at the bottom and the top of the income spectrum. So at the bottom, that's tax credits, the EITC and the CTC, to put more money back in working and middle-class people's pockets. And at the top, it's raising taxes on the very wealthy and corporations. We could raise $7 trillion of additional revenue to pay for all of the progressive priorities that we share. And by ramping up corporate tax rates, we can actually fight corporate concentration and reduce corporate power. So making the tax code fair is a fundamental component of building an economy that delivers for people. It's how we can put more money back in low-income people's pockets. It's how we can build a more racially equitable tax code. And creating a better tax code is one of the primary ways that we can build the infrastructure for a guaranteed income in this country. So the shared progressive platform for what are we fighting for in 2025 came out a couple of weeks ago. It was signed by more than 100 organizations, including ESP and Community Change, and many in this room. And that platform is, we need a tax code that is more fair in the way that I just described, that raises more revenue, not just more than today, not just more than letting the tax cuts expire, but more than we raised before those stupid tax cuts back in 2017, and more policies for faster and more inclusive economic growth, like care and climate and all kinds of other things that we care about. Now, we're probably, most likely, going to be facing some kind of divided government next year. So that, if that's true, that means that anything that passes has to be a bipartisan deal, right? 60 votes to pass the Senate. Fortunately, we have on our side one of the most effective and powerful messages in American politics today. We want to lower costs for middle-class families. We would expand tax credits for millions of working parents, make billionaires pay what they owe in taxes, and close tax loopholes for corporations. This is in the 99th percentile of all messages tested this year at one of these kind of most important progressive message testing research companies. So you don't have to scramble to write this down. You can just write down economicsecurity.us. That's our C4 website, and this is the first featured item on there. So we've got the tools at our disposal to fight a powerful fight this year.
All right, so we've been saying for years that the biggest opportunity for permanent expansion of the child tax credit that we experienced, many of us experienced temporarily in 2021, permanent expansion of the earned income tax credit was going to be this 2025
That's right.
tax fight. So what is the opportunity now that it's here?
For the CTC, it looks pretty much like 2021 in most respects. Monthly, expanded, fully refundable, and available to kids regardless of their family's immigration status. Yeah. For the EITC, also similar to 2021, expanded to workers of all ages 18 plus, and a big boost for workers without dependent children in the home who are often left behind by the EITC. Now let's look for a second at who benefits from the TCJA. I feel like nothing better than a bar graph at 3:30 in the afternoon. So if you are with me, then we are in the right place. So let's look at who benefited from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Mostly the people on the right, the wealthy and corporations, right? And then tiny little boosts for low-income and middle-income people. And those boosts came mostly from the child tax credit. So if the TCJA expires, the wealthy pay more, the corporations pay more. Lower and middle-income people pay a little bit more, mostly because the CTC, which is at $2,000 today, goes down to $1,000. But the corporate taxes, I misspoke a second ago, the corporate taxes stay the same. Those were made permanent. So we have to use this as an opportunity to turn the dial back up on those corporate taxes. So where the parties stand, Trump's in the news this week telling donors behind closed doors, if you elect me, I'll cut taxes even further for the wealthy and corporations. No big surprise there. Democrats are pretty much unanimous, thanks to the hard work of basically everybody in this room, that one of the top priorities is expanding tax credits next year. Most of them agree that we ought to, or many of them at least, agree that we ought to raise taxes on corporations and the wealthy, but you know Democrats, not all of them, right? So the organizing that happens in states could make trillions of dollars worth of difference in what actually happens for families at the end of the day.
All right, so I want to turn next to one of the sexiest federal agencies around, the IRS.
Woo-hoo!
All right. We heard from Rebecca earlier from the IRS about the direct file pilot in 12 states. Talk to us about what organizers and advocates can do to bring direct file to their state, and why does direct file matter?
Yeah, I mean, so it was a huge success for everybody who was part of it. The pilot was fantastic this year. It's a huge success that it's been made permanent. But there's a part that's a little bit confusing that I want to make sure you understand. It will be people in all 50 states. All 50 states are invited to participate in this permanent program going forward. But that doesn't mean that if you take no action, people in your state will get direct file next year. And I think that's been easy to miss in the excitement about this announcement. It may be the case that direct file is available only in states that build an integration between the federal tool, basically a data pipe, so that people, taxpayers, can take that data they typed into the federal tool and import it directly into their state tax filing website. So what that means is this is going to be a state-by-state effort to get your state signed up. You're going to have to do something to make sure the direct file is available to folks in your state next year. ESP's research finds that we could save people $11 billion when direct file is fully built out over the course of the next few years. $11 billion in tax filing fees saved and time saved, and another $12 billion in tax credits that people are eligible for today but are missing out because the tax process is too expensive and too complicated. So if you are one of the people in this room who hears low-income people helping them file their taxes, that's what VITA does. We don't really work on that, but you should totally talk to them. Then you are missing out on the best tool that we have available to boost access, equitable access to tax credits in your state. The tool that can be the platform for automatic tax filing, where the government does it for you, and one of the best tools that we have to create the infrastructure for a guaranteed income in this country. So what we're hearing from states is, state groups and state tax agencies, is a lot of excitement about wanting to be part of the pilot, but states move slow. So many of them are like, next year, that's a little fast, but like 2026, we should be good. There's a narrow window in the next couple of weeks where states can sign up, and there's still time to build that data integration and for them to be online and have direct file online, this seamless process for 2025. ESP is trying to get some funders together for the 15 to 20 states that use back-end software called GenTax to see if we can get funders to pay for the cost of that, doing that data integration. So that would take the oh, we don't have money to pay for it obstacle off the table. So we're trying to make that happen as a tool for folks to get there in the next couple weeks. So the bottom line is, what do you need to do to get direct file in your state? You need to do a little organizing, a little inside advocacy. You need to get your tax agency in your state to decide that this is the worthwhile investment that we have all together shown that it is. And we think in most states, you probably need a political leader to juice that tax agency a little bit, get it moving a little bit faster than they might otherwise on their own.
So final question. We all live in states. At least some of us. I live in D.C. I ain't a state. I got no representation. But for those of you that live in states, for those of us that live in states, why should we care that much about what Congress is doing? And especially like ESP, community, we're national organizations. Why should people care about national, federal politics and campaigns?
Yeah. So I asked two of our closest tax credit partners a couple of weeks ago, what do you think about the 2025 federal tax fight? And they looked at me blankly for 10 seconds. And finally, one of them goes, I don't think about it. I'm hoping that ESP and the Center on Budget are thinking about it. We're focused on what's happening in our state. So I totally understand that. I totally understand that way of thinking. But I want to show you why I think it's in your best interest to be engaged in this tax fight. We have seen big wins on state tax credits over the last couple of years, right? You heard Michigan, Governor Whitmer, 5X on the EITC. Colorado passing the biggest child tax credit in the country this year and boosting their EITC. And Illinois becoming the 15th state with a child tax credit just a couple of weeks ago. Also wins this year in Minnesota and New York, and DC is right on the brink of victory. So if you were involved in that tax credit fight, let's hear it for those folks. Yeah. Now, let's zoom out on that graph, and let's look what you can do if you also fight for direct file in your state. When direct file is fully implemented, that purple bar is the savings from filing fees saved and time saved and the boost in tax credit uptake of the current federal EITC and CTC. And now let's look at how much it matters to expand the federal EITC and the CTC. So that big tall bar is roughly how much money goes to low and middle income families in your state if we go back to the 2021 monthly EITC and CTC. So if we win that tax credit expansion and we do direct file, that's what you get. And don't forget, if we expand the federal EITC, that means more federal dollars going to low-income people in your state. But most of you live in states where the state EITC is tied to the federal. So that also means more state dollars going out the door to low-income people in your state. So the bottom line is this. The communications you do, the organizing, the storytellers, the inside advocacy can all make a huge difference in this fight over the course of the next year. Every state will have important targets because Democrats and Republicans alike will be targets. The moderates, sure, but also we need conservative champions of the child tax credit. We need progressives who are lobbying their colleagues to support raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations. And how many of you are in states with tight state budgets? Most people, right? So if you can't pass a big state tax credit expansion next year, this may be the best way that you can move dollars out to low and middle income people in your state. So ESP is going to be providing you with numbers like these for your state so that you can help make that case. We'll work with you to help you figure out how this fits into your plans together with Community Change and the Center on Budget. And the bottom line is this is a huge opportunity for economic security and for racial equity. And we're really excited to be in this fight together with you all. Thanks.
Give Adam Ruben a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.